Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby here with Gabby Beans, who is nominated this year at the Tonys for her performance in The Skin of Our Teeth. And when I saw this show, Gabby, the thing I think that first really struck me watching you was this voice you're using, which is sort of hyper stylized as Sabina and kind of quite different from your normal talking voice. So how did you kind of land on that character choice?
Well, when I was preparing before we got into rehearsal, I hadn't I had an intuition about the fact that I felt like because it's very meta what this part because you're
Right.
playing the actress playing Sabina. And so one of my considerations was purely technical because I wanted it to be very clear when I was in character and when I was dropping the character. And I felt like if I was speaking in a placement that was close and was too close to my natural voice, that it might make an already very confusing play a little bit more confusing. So I was like, at least I can bring clarity in this realm where like they will know when I'm in the play and when I'm being the actress who's breaking out of the play. And then so then you know I originally brought in an idea that was completely different than what we ended up landing with for Sabina. I was basically doing a Nicki Minaj impersonation. that's what I was that's what I auditioned for with. And but I didn't know at that time what time period the play was going to be set in because I hadn't seen the design concepts and stuff. So then once we got into the room and we did the design presentations, I had a few conversations with Liliana and we realized, okay, we need to do the sound needs to be more historical. And so I was just researching like who could be a reference to work with, and Eartha Kitt came up. I've been an Eartha Kitt fan for many years, and I was like, who can I watch videos of for the like endlessly and never get bored? And I was like, well, that's her. So the voice is not really a Eartha Kitt impersonation, but it's like a demented Eartha Kitt vibe.
Yeah. Well, she's a good one to pull from, though. Now I kind of want you to revive it again and do the Nicki Minaj version because that would be pretty great too. Uh, but this
Well,
is
I mean, the reason I thought of that was because, the characters in the play are sort of archetypal. And so Sabina is Lilith, like, so the idea of like the
Mhm.
dark feminine seductress vibe. And I was thinking of like women who occupy that space in our culture, and I felt like Nicki Minaj kind of represents that kind of energy, that like sensual, sexual, explosive, powerful feminine energy. So and Eartha does in her own way too, so I would be
Yeah.
interested to see it too.
Was it's a pretty immense play. It's almost, like 3 hours long. Was it difficult, in terms of like vocal endurance to keep your voice there that long?
Yeah, it was a learning, there was a steep learning curve, especially during previews. um because I'm like, my name is Gabby, like I love to just like talk and hang out and crack jokes and all that, but I had to learn how to conserve my voice, which meant that in between rehearsal, like during our breaks or during meal times, I slowly had to just learn that I needed to be on vocal rest. And luckily, there was only one performance during previews where I truly had no voice. And it was terrifying. It was a horrible experience to perform with like basically no voice. And I realized I had to just be a lot more conservative outside the theater, to be able to make sure I had the vocal energy on stage. And my voice still hasn't fully recovered. I'm still a little hoarse, but yeah, that was by far the biggest challenge for me, was just making sure I had enough vocal juice to get through it.
Wow. Well, another thing when you watch it is it's kind of astounding that Thornton Wilder wrote this, premiered it in like 1942, because it's wild even now. So you think about what audience reactions must have been then. The play is just encompasses so much breadth of ideas and themes in it. Did it take you a while to sort of wrap your head around a way to ground yourself in this text?
Yes, definitely. I mean, when I first got the audition, I read the play, and I'm not gonna lie, I was like, why did Liliana pick this? Because I just didn't understand it. And I don't know. I gotta be honest with you, I don't know if I fully understand it now. But what I will say is that I do completely understand why Liliana chose the play, because there are so many resonances with our current moment, freakily so. You know, in the top of the play where I say for 2 years I've been sitting in my room eating a sandwich and a cup of tea a day, waiting on the theater to return to what it used to be. I mean, that's real. And like, that's not a line that Brandon added. That's just where they were in that moment, which is clearly like parallel with where we are in this moment. And I think that, like, you know, at one point in the play, Sabina says, I'll say the lines, but I won't think about the play. And I advise you not to think about the play either. At first I thought that was just a joke, but now I think that's actually, those are real instructions. I think that the play works in a sort of dreamlike way where there are so many layers of allegory and metaphor and historical reference and humor and poetry sort of occupying the same space, that you're just supposed to let it wash over you, and whatever sort of sticks with you on one viewing, another thing will stick with you on a different viewing. And it actually makes less sense if you try to create like a pithy condensed spark notes version of what the story of this play is. I think it's immense, and it's epic in its scope, and it's as absurd and incomprehensible as it is to be living right now.
Yeah, definitely. And so with that in mind, like, what was it like working with Liliana? She seems to have obviously such a very clear vision of what she wanted with this production. And it's very open, I think, the play to director's interpretation. So what was kind of her direction to you?
One thing that's really amazing about working with Liliana is that she really lets you bring what you want to bring. So, I mean, really, with Sabina, the joy of playing Sabina is that she is like both in her Sabina form and her actress form. She is free. She is free to say what she thinks, to do what she wants, to be, at least the way I interpreted her, to be as big and loud and take as much space up as she wants to in any given moment. And so I I I was grateful in the process that Liliana just let me bring whatever I wanted to bring to the table. And really, our relationship in this rehearsal process was more of like her sort of editing, you know, like saying, okay, a little bit more in this direction, but like, let's cool it on that direction, or let's add a little bit of this. So more so than any other project that I've worked on, it was a really like a nice sort of back and forth of us figuring out where she lives in this world and what her function in the story is, or was. And I think Liliana also is not afraid of, she's not afraid to like live in a dangerous space. Like she allows you to make choices that other directors might be kind of afraid of, that other directors might think are like too much. Like she doesn't impose limits on herself or on her collaborators on the design and creative sort of team. And the same goes with actors. So I just felt incredibly free to just, every dumb joke, like, let's try it once, you know what I mean? And a lot of those dumb jokes, by some grace of God, like ended up in the show. Like there's some stuff that ended up in the show that I'm like, I cannot believe that this is in the show. But you know, that's the cool thing about working with Liana.
So for those moments then where she does break the fourth wall and Sabina kind of becomes fourth wall breaking, is there room then to add like pieces of you? Do you consider that Gabby on stage in those moments?
That's such a Interesting question. It was different from night to night. Um, Sometimes, well, and it also depends on the audience, because really one of the great things about playing Sabina is it really helped me learn how to listen to an audience and how to understand where people's senses of humor, like as a collective, where it lived. And sometimes, and I'm not gonna say like I was good at it. I am a student of that, but but you get like, because I have that opening monologue where I get to just sort of like be with the audience and hear like how they're sort of receiving the show. Sometimes I could see that like that certain audiences wanted you to sort of meet them halfway. So sometimes it's like you need to be a little bit more quiet and dropped in and grounded for them to and that would let them into the story. And then there were other audiences where they were yearning for like a fierce diva actress, and so then I would step into that. So it never fully felt like me, because I for example, there was one performance where the leg of the dinosaur fell off right before the dinosaur was supposed to enter. So at one point, so Roz, who plays the incredible Roz Ruff, who plays Mrs. Antrobus, turns around and says, "Oh, there's that dinosaur on the front lawn again," and there was no dinosaur. And so she goes to the window and she's like trying to like make it work, the show must go on. And so then we hear hold from the real stage manager, not the not the fake stage manager played by Donetta. And we're just standing there waiting to see like what's going to happen. And it was such an interesting moment because we could tell, the audience doesn't know if this is part of the show or not, more so than, any other show probably, where, that dynamic is more blurred. And I was terrified, like, like Latasha, who's playing Sabina in the play, would like totally take that moment to like, say some funny stuff, but I was just like, so anyway, long way of saying it is me, but it's also not me. It's like me on my most diva-ish and confident day.
Well, I think that's a good day to live on stage every day. You were talking about, speaking of the fact that there's dinosaurs on stage, what I really appreciated about this was that the scale is enormous. There are massive sets. There's the dinosaur puppetry going on. There's the huge Atlantic City moment in Act Two, and you have this enormous cast to play with, which we sadly don't get plays like this a lot anymore, because many people frankly can't afford to do them in this way. So what does that type of scale do for you as an actress?
Well, it makes you kind of feel like you have to rise to the occasion, you know what I mean? Because I knew in rehearsal, like when we were still in the rehearsal room, the Chuck, our stage manager, had mentioned that the Beaumont stage is the third largest stage in New York. It's only smaller than Radio City and the Metropolitan Opera. So that really informed a lot of my decisions, because I was like, I don't want to be swallowed by the space. So so to play a space of that epic proportion with also like the epic design work around you, you want your energy as an actor to be at that same level. So it's really nice because it gives you can't shrink, you know what I mean? You can't take up less space. You can't be like demure about things. You have to be in that world, and that world is one that is bright and vibrant and colorful and huge. And I think it's nice because most of the time as an actor right now, you're asked to live in a really sort of confined naturalistic space that mimics how we move through the world as people right now, and to have that exploded open and be given license to just be ferocious and ravenous in how you approach the work is really wonderful. I feel like I learned a lot from that.
Oh. Well, I wanted to make sure I asked you about your your history here, because I read that you were not pursuing acting at one point. You were instead going to med school. What prompted the change? That's quite a big shift.
Well, let me be clear. I had not gotten into med school. What it was I studied neuroscience as an undergraduate, and I was a double major. I studied neuroscience and theater, but I was pre-med, and really my focus in college was going down the lab science sort of medical track. And that was because I still do have a big interest in neuroscience. I mean, I think it's kind of two sides of the same coin. Like, you're looking at human behavior from two very different areas of sort of directions of approach, rather. But the thing is like, I always knew deep down I wanted to be an actor from a really young age. And the only thing that was keeping me from fully pursuing that was fear of failure, fear of disappointing my family, none of whom are really artists or have any awareness of like what a life in the arts means. And so when I got to my senior year of college and I was getting ready to like start applying in earnest to medical school, I just realized I actually do have something that I really love and that I'm truly passionate about, and I should probably give it a try, or else I'm going to feel regret for the rest of my life. So that's kind of how that happened. I went from fear of failure in an acting life to fear of lifelong regret of not pursuing acting. So it was a lot of fear.
Well, I'm glad you've conquered the fear, because here you are. It's your Broadway debut, and you're now a Tony nominee. What has that been like? What has this experience post-nomination been like for you?
It's been really surreal, really wonderful. It's not something I ever imagined for myself. I never imagined being on Broadway, first of all, as someone who's not much of a singer, not much of a dancer. Usually you see most plays are cast from film and TV stars. You don't really like imagine that you're going to get some big meaty role on Broadway as a sort of journeyman actor. So even getting the role was like such a huge thrill, and then to get this nomination and also like to be on that list with these other like unbelievably talented actresses, it's just hugely lovely. It's just really lovely.
Well, congratulations. It's very well deserved. So
Thank
congrats
you.
on the nominations and your run in Skin of Our Teeth. And everyone who's out there watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby. Stay with us throughout the rest of this Tony season. And Gabby, thanks so much. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Sam. This was fun.